What's up? What's going on? How y'all doing? How y'all feeling? Let's get down to the situation. Please like, comment, subscribe, share the video, y'all. So let's get into this whole situation. Let's talk about Nia Long and Jeezy doing an interview together, and basically Jeezy answering questions about his childhood, his life, and the things that where he's at today and how he is changing. But he did talk about his marriage, and he did talk about the things he had to overcome. And it's almost seeming like he describes his marriage as well before we get to the meat and the potatoes of when Nia Long asked Jeezy about, like, you made all these changes in life and you did all these wonderful things and you're healing and you're forgiving and you know where you want to be, you know what you want now. What as the man that you are today, what made you file for a divorce? And he basically says integrity. And part of the interview, he was talking about how integrity is very important to him, how he carries himself, how he moves, how he loves himself, and how he has to stick up for himself. And at one point in time, if he lets people walk over him, if he lets people dog him out, and if he don't protect himself, if he don't protect the inner Jeezy, the little child Jeezy, because as a child, he was left in situations where he was abused and neglected by his mother, his father, and things of that nature. And he had to hide, when there was a god-awful domestic violence situation happened and someone came in bucking and pulling all over the place, and he had to hide under the sink. So his integrity is never to hide against, to never be afraid, and also to protect himself, protect his inner peace. And he basically says that he's never going to say anything bad about Jeannie, but he can say one thing, that he is saddened. He says that he, is disappointed, he's uneasy, and he's also saying that God chose a different path for him. So he's saying the path that God chose for him now is not to be with her, but he didn't say in them words, because earlier in the interview, Jeezy said that, God put him on a different path. God saved his life by getting him away from his enemies that was trying to kill him, and also the people that was surrounding him that was doing him dirty, robbing him, stealing from him, setting him up and things of that nature, where he had to travel with security. And then he said he lost his voice, and then God gave him back his voice, and he had Bell's palsy or things of that nature, where your face kind of freezes up and you don't get movement in your face, just like Justin Bieber said that he recently had. He said God had to put him on a different journey, and that journey was to love himself. That journey was to remove him from the people that was no good to him. That journey was for him to change, to say something different, to change up. He was put in the streets and gang life and everything else out there, but God wanted to use his voice differently, and he had to change up. So Jeezy, speaking on his divorce, basically saying that God, put him in a different path, and it entails something different, where he has to love oneself and always love oneself and be in the best situation where he can thrive, and where, he can excel and have the partner with him. So basically he's saying God done told him and showed him there's a different way and there's a different path, and it ain't with his ex-wife. And Jeezy also says, I fell at something that I would have gave my life for. So he was head over heels in love with Jeannie, but it just didn't work. Also, when it comes to Nia Long, she said that when it comes to her ex-fiance and her child's father, Ume Udoka, she basically says that the last year, whatever happened to her, she didn't feel embarrassed. She didn't feel like she did anything wrong, and she didn't take it any type of way. And she was loving that black women were supporting her and loving her. But what she did say is she had nothing to do with it. It wasn't her fault. Like him cheating and him losing his job and she being blindsided by this woman that came into her life, that's talking to her on the phone, that's setting up her flights, that had nothing to do with her. She didn't do anything wrong. And that's true. And Jeezy commented right after she said that, he goes, that's my point in case. So I'm assuming that Jeezy is basically saying, yes, this divorce had nothing to do with me, it's not my fault. So that's where it seems like Jeezy is going with this whole situation, as far as him leaving and filing for a divorce from Jeanine, is because they could not move forward together. And he's basically saying that he did the work, he put in the work, and she didn't put in the work. And it's evident that he's actually talking about Jeanine when he's having these conversations when it comes to Nia, when they are talking about, what about if you're putting in all the work And Jeezy says, you're putting in all the work, but the person isn't on board. And that's when Nia Long said, well, you have to let them go and do their own journey and leave them right where they at. So hopefully, they can find it, but you can't fight for them. And Jeezy said, I 100% I agree with that whole situation. And so it seems they were talking about relationships. So it's only natural that he's talking about his ex-wife. And also Nia says it's very hard to walk away from someone that you love. And he's like, yes, he totally agreed. And, Jeezy was talking about being vulnerable and being open and being able to talk. And I don't know if he reached that level when it comes to Jeannie. Well, obviously he didn't reach that level, because he kept saying the journey that he's on, and it's healing. And two people have to be open. They have to be transparent. And I believe that he's saying that, his ex-wife, Jeannie, she wasn't transparent and she wasn't open. And he's trying to change, and he's trying to do things that better fits him and make him a better person, and she wasn't on board, and he was on board to making the things work. So it just seems like it was tumultuous for him, and it almost seems like he was unhappy from the beginning, because he realized within this marriage of saying I do that it was a mistake. And it almost seems like, he's having these visions and these meditation. What he's doing is going into his self, and his self is saying, Jeannie's not right for me. She's not the one. And, Jeezy also says that when you're putting everything into it, and you got kids, and it's just not working. And he's asking Nia Long the situation, what do you do? And Nia says, well, if they're not willing to do the deep work, they're not willing to do the hard work, and if you stay with them, it's like you're making yourself smaller. It's like you're forgetting who you are. And Jeezy keeps going back to integrity of who he's supposed to be and not letting anybody overshadow him. And once Nia said that when you stay, you make yourself smaller, like you hurt yourself, because now you're not living your life. You're not being real. You're not being who you are. And he goes, it's 1,000%. So I believe that Jeezy is saying that this relationship, when it comes to Jeannie, was, hectic, and she wasn't on board with him. And he was dimming his light to make her light brighter. And, he was having inner conflict, where he realized he had to let her go because she's not on the journey. And, just like he had to let go his homeboys, he had to let go some of his family, some of his friends, some of his management. And God took him out of that. He's basically saying God is taking him out of this marriage because he could have been canceled. Not that he could be canceled with her, but not doing the things that he, wanted to do, in life, and not living up to them standards, is basically hindering his growth. And he's not going to ever stop growing. He's going to continue to grow and evolve. And he could not grow and evolve with Jeanine. There was just two different people on two different, places. But he's not coming out forthright and saying that. He's talking about different examples of dimming your lights, and talking about not being able to talk. And he asked her, like, what would you do if the person didn't, do the work? And he was like, I would leave, child, I would go. And also, Jeezy says, what happens when you are a man and you want nothing more for it to work? And you got the kids. He reiterated that you got these kids involved, you got a family involved, and they're not taking that journey, that healing journey with you. So reiterated that he has to stand up for himself. So I believe that he felt like his voice was silenced in their marriage. And also I believe that Jeannie reminded him of his mother. And he talks about not being appreciated. And it also seems like he's saying that, he's been trying to fulfill, others and relationships and make them happy, because all he tried to do was make his mother happy, and his mother never really seen it. And he would meet these milestones in life, and it's like, oh, whatever. And I wonder if he's equating that to his marriage, and that was going on in his marriage as well. But he wasn't direct on the milestone part. It was like it was towards his mother, but also not having that appreciation is a thing. So y'all tell me what y'all think about this whole situation. And he goes, all he ever wanted was a family. He wanted to get it right. He didn't want to fail, but he's saying that sometimes you have to let that person have space. And it was very hard, him having a family and letting her go in so many different words, where he's not coming out blatantly saying that, but he felt like he was meeting resistance in relationships, and he only could be possibly, at this point, it was his mother, his friends, and now he's talking about his wife, where he interchanged his wife and his mother and this whole dialogue that he's having with Nia Long. And he's also saying, what about when you're doing everything? And he reiterates again that he's doing everything. He's working on self. He's trying to get the mental together. And two people have to heal together. Love is about healing. And he goes, what if the person is not appreciating you? What if you met with, resistance? And they have their own problems where they're not understanding where you're coming from. And so Nia says to him, that's very fixable. And Jeezy said, well, they got to do the work. And basically, he's saying that she wasn't doing the work. So this is a whole mess going on. And then Jeezy does talk about, real men don't cheat. So it seems like Jeezy did not cheat on, his ex-wife, Jeannie, because he's saying that a real man doesn't cheat because he wants to always be right. He wants to always be honorable, and he's living through integrity. So the last thing he would do will be cheat, because that's so easy. That's the easy way out. So, and then Nia says, so you want to be honorable, you want to have integrity, and you also want to honor the woman that you're with by not cheating and not disrespecting her. And he goes, yes, that's what I want. He goes, everything with me is integrity and work. But he's saying when you battle up against what you're trying to go forth with, and your partner is battling you and messes with his integrity, that he can't be himself and he can't express what he wants to happen and things of that nature. So there's a whole lot going on where there was battles, and it seems like they did the right thing. He did the right thing by calling it out, calling off the marriage and asking for a divorce, because clearly he was not happy. Clearly he says that he tried to do everything he possibly could. This is his side of the story, not hers. And right now he just wants to teach and be the best that he can be. And he wants black women to be there for the black man, especially, because black men go through so much and they be at their lowest point that they need a sister to talk to, because they can't talk to their homies. They can't talk to their friends. They need that nurturing. They need that love. They need that vulnerability, that they can have a safe place with a black woman. But he didn't marry a black woman. But I guess he's saying in the aspect of what his mother wasn't to him, she wasn't a safe place to be. She wasn't a safe place to go. He had to run. He had to leave from his mother. And it seems like his mother caused a lot of traumatic issues. And it seems like he blamed his mother for a lot of the things that happened in his life, which he left home at the age of 13 or 14, because his mother was just downright crazy and he was being abused all types of way. He was in all types of violent situations. So there's a lot of work that he had to do to actually get to this point and say what he is saying. Hopefully this is all true and this is not just to sell a book, okay? But one thing it seems like Jeezy was trying to express in this interview, that him being married to Jeannie and things going wrong, or people think about him in a certain way where he can lose his whole career if he makes the wrong step. So he's guarded, and I think that he knew it wasn't going to work with her, so he didn't want to get canceled and cheat and do something like crazy. So he removed himself, because who knows if the cops was ever involved, if their arguments were really bad, or one person can say something that can destroy your life, where people don't want to be doing business with you. But he said he's never going to say anything bad about her, but he had to move and get out the way. So that's a whole situation. So you guys let me know what you think about that situation. He goes, also, so at the end of the day, the marriage did not work out between Jeezy and Janine, it just didn't work out. And he's basically saying one of the reasons why it didn't work out is because, you know, she wasn't on board for that healing journey, and it takes two to love. And he also says that, you know, you got to be open, you have to be transparent, you have to want the change, you have to be real. And being real is being real with yourself and loving yourself and knowing what you want. And basically, he's saying that this marriage wasn't what he wanted, and there was a lot of trials and tribulations, and it was hectic, and he had to smallen himself, he had to hush, he had to be quiet, and it made him feel like he was back there being a child again, and that's not what he wanted. And he said he's always going to protect the inner Jeezy, because the inner Jeezy wasn't protected as he was growing up as a child and then also as an adult. And if you get in the way of him, you know, feeling weak, feeling vulnerable, as far as you're taking advantage of him or you're hurting him or he can't be himself, he is going to leave and exit, because he's going to always choose himself. And, you know, he talks about having these visions, talking to his mother and things of that nature, and also having visions of himself as a child and seeing himself locked in a basement. He took himself out the basement and played with himself and said, you can be happy, you can be joyful, you can speak. And he's basically saying that he's going to protect himself at all costs.